U.S. President Joe Biden's plan to forgive student debt could help more than 40 million Americans. So would that and could that happen here in this country? There's more than $22 billion in federal student loans in Canada. The average student debt for someone with a bachelor's degree is $28,000. Erica Shaker is the director of the National Office of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. Good morning, Erica. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Could this happen here? Could student debt be forgiven in Canada?
Well, it could. Really, it's a question of whether or not we actually make that a priority. But it would certainly have a huge impact on those who would qualify for it. We know in Ontario alone, back in 2018, more than 1 out of 6 people who declared insolvency indicated that student loans played a part. So if you extrapolate that across the rest of the country, we're talking about 22,000 former students declaring bankruptcy in 2018 alone, at least in part because of student debt. So just from that very specific point, yes, of course it would have an impact on the lives of those people. But debt also impacts whether or not you can make major life decisions, or when you can make them, whether you can get married, have kids, buy a house, put money into savings, the jobs you take, whether or not you get trapped in that cycle of precarity. So we're really looking at something that would be absolutely life-changing for students who qualify.
Would it be likely to happen, though?
Well, the question is whether or not we actually make that decision. I mean, we know that we're talking about prioritizing whether or not we want to improve the lives of those who qualify, but then also addressing the spin-off effects of graduating an entire generation into debt. It's not an insignificant amount of money. I mean, the Public Parliamentary Budget Office did an estimate that suggested, that if you wanted to eliminate debt for a significant portion of students and then eliminate tuition fees on top of that, we're looking at $16 billion in year one and then an additional $10 billion after that. Oh, I think we have to remember there's a cost to graduating a generation into debt, right? Mm-hmm. The costs are just sort of downloaded onto students and their families, many of whom are far less in a position to actually bear that cost than the federal government, for example. And the fact is, we pay for it one way or the other. There is a cost, obviously, to eliminating the debts that have accumulated. And you're absolutely correct. We're talking about $22 billion in federal debt alone. That doesn't look at provincial. That doesn't include private. So it is a significant amount of money. But we're also talking about where we can actually best address that debt. Can the government make a difference? Absolutely. We just saw what happened with regard to rolling out a federal plan, CERB, the emergency relief benefit, which profoundly impacted poverty rates in Canada. So it's a really timely reminder of what a government is actually capable of and what quick action can do to transform and even save people's lives. The question is whether or not we're actually going to prioritize it. And I think that you can make a very strong case for why, both on an individual level, but also collectively, too.
What do you make of the argument that it's, some people would say, it's unfair to people who have already had to pay off their debts completely?
I've heard that argument. It really is the perfect argument against progress. I mean, social programs were created because people wanted something better for their children, their grandchildren, than they themselves had, right? A decent standard of living, accessible education, healthcare, financial assistance if they lose their job, the ability to retire with dignity, and some financial security. So I think we have to question, is the goal of fairness to make everything as bad as it has ever been?
Right.
Because that's not fair. That's just simply giving up on the notion that we can do things better than they've been done in the past. A past, mind you, where tuition fees were already much lower and the resultant debt loads much, much smaller.
Erica, we really appreciate your time and insight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.